It began not with a bang, but with a whisper. A single, almost innocuous line, buried deep within the labyrinthine text of a classified cable. Yet that one sentence, like a venomous serpent uncoiling in the shadows, possessed enough power to send tremors through an entire continent and rattle the foundations of a sovereign nation. Captain Ibrahim Traoré, the young, defiant leader of Burkina Faso, was given an impossible choice: deliver 90% of his nation's newly confirmed oil and ancient gold reserves within a brutal 24-hour deadline, or face consequences so severe they threatened to dismantle his country from within. And the name etched at the bottom of that chilling document? Donald J. Trump, then President of the United States. This wasn't the usual dance of international diplomacy. This wasn't a subtle political maneuver. No, this was a hard-hitting global business offensive executed through the dark corridors of backdoor diplomacy. The sheer audacity of the demand shocked even the inner sanctum of Washington. There were no talks, no room for negotiation, no pretense of a deal, just a flat-out, non-negotiable ultimatum: surrender almost complete control of Burkina Faso's vast, untapped energy and mineral wealth. It wasn't an invitation to the bargaining table. It was a brazen, undeniable threat aimed directly at the beating heart of Ouagadougou. Before we plunge deeper into this electrifying tale of defiance and power, if you're captivated by stories of true sovereignty and unyielding courage, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to our channel for more content that challenges the narrative, and leave a comment below with your thoughts on this incredible showdown. Your engagement fuels our mission to bring these vital stories to light. Sources, whispering from the shadows of intelligence agencies, confirmed the cable wasn't merely transmitted, it was hand-delivered, a physical manifestation of imperial will carried by a trusted go-between, a former U.S. military attaché, his presence underscored by the watchful eyes of private American security contractors. It landed on Captain Ibrahim Traoré's desk just as the first rays of dawn kissed the dusty plains of Burkina Faso. The message, stripped of all diplomatic niceties, was crystal clear: allow U.S. corporations immediate access to extract oil and export gold. Furthermore, hand over long-term control of Burkina Faso's entire energy policy to an American-led economic board. All of this within 24 hours. Fail and face crippling sanctions, suffocating resource blockades, and the insidious creep of internal sabotage. This wasn't diplomacy. This was a shakedown, pure and unadulterated. Trump's tone, as described by those who saw the document, was blunt, cold, and entirely transactional. We saved you from terrorism. Now it's time to pay up. But there was one critical factor Trump, and indeed the entire global machine, failed to account for. The man sitting across from that audacious demand was not one to fold. Captain Traoré didn't flinch. His eyes, though calm, held a razor-sharp resolve. He didn't hesitate. He summoned his intelligence chief, brought in his top military commander, and delivered his instructions with an unwavering voice. Tell the Americans Burkina Faso is not for sale. By midday, the story, leaked or strategically released, exploded. African media networks across the continent lit up. From the bustling streets of Lagos to the vibrant markets of Kinshasa, the headline screamed: Trump demands Africa's resources, Traoré given 24-hour deadline. The world, now fully aware of the high-stakes gamble, held its breath. Burkina Faso, a nation often overlooked, was suddenly the epicenter of a geopolitical earthquake. But Captain Traoré wasn't crafting a reply with pen and paper or through the channels of traditional diplomacy. He was writing his answer with strategy, with steel, and with the unyielding will of a sovereign nation. The clock was ticking, and the stage was set for an unprecedented confrontation. You see, for months, something monumental had been kept under wraps. buried deep beneath the dry, sun-baked plains of northern Burkina Faso. This wasn't mere rumor or hopeful guesswork. This was real. Massive, untouched oil reserves, confirmed not by Western geologists but by a secret geological task force formed immediately after Traoré seized power. Russian engineers, their expertise invaluable, helped run the sophisticated scans. Iranian drones, flying under the radar of prying eyes, provided critical aerial reconnaissance. And North Korean tech teams, masters of digital security, locked down the sensitive data, ensuring every byte remained classified, every detail secure, until the very first drill broke ground. And then, the satellites caught it. American satellites, French satellites, the ever-watching eyes in the sky. Within 48 hours, U.S. intelligence flagged strange, unprecedented energy activity in the Sahel. They tracked heavy equipment flowing in from unlikely partners like Iran and Venezuela. Encrypted messages, intercepted and decoded, hinted at the emergence of a new sovereign petroleum corridor. And soon the gold signals lit up too. Burkina Faso was already in motion, quietly, strategically taking back what was rightfully theirs. For weeks they had been kicking out French-controlled mining companies, not with fanfare, but with quiet, decisive action. These foreign entities were swiftly replaced by national military units, securing the mines, ensuring the wealth remained within the nation's grasp. The money, once siphoned off to Paris, no longer flowed into distant coffers. It was being redirected, every single franc, into a local development fund, a direct investment in the future of the Burkinabe people. At Washington, with its vast intelligence apparatus, understood precisely what this meant. Here was a country, not just with oil and gold, but with a burgeoning vision of self-determination. A nation not run by Wall Street, not answering to Paris, not begging the IMF for scraps, but backed by its own people, its own army, its own audacious vision. That wasn't just defiance. That was a blueprint. And that blueprint, that terrifying possibility, scared the hell out of them. They didn't just want the oil. They wanted to kill the idea before Mali, Niger, Chad, or Congo got any bright ideas of their own. That's when the phone calls started ringing, echoing through the power corridors of Exxon, Chevron, and the deepest echelons of D.C. Power players, their voices laced with thinly veiled panic, all asking the same question. How do we shut this down before it becomes another Libya, only this time African-owned? Their answer? Swift and brutal. Send Traoré. Send the threat. Force Traoré to kneel. But the man they picked, the young captain in Ouagadougou, he doesn't kneel. When the message, wrapped in arrogance and disguised as business, arrived in Burkina Faso's war room, it wasn't dressed in diplomacy. It was the language of empire masquerading as a deal. Trump's team delivered it like a business proposal, but make no mistake, this wasn't negotiation. This was extortion. The demands, outlined in a 7-page document marked Confidential Strategic Resource Acquisition Framework, were anything but subtle. 90% of Burkina Faso's oil production granted to U.S. oil giants for stabilization and infrastructure purposes, control of all major gold export routes handed over to U.S.-approved intermediaries, and an American advisory committee overseeing all new mining contracts and revenue distribution. And in exchange, promises of military security cooperation, technology partnerships, and chillingly, protection from regime change. Yes, you read that right. A veiled threat buried beneath polite wording. The message? Obey us or fall. And at the top of the document, scrolled in thick red ink, one handwritten note. Traoré has 24 hours. This wasn't just economic colonialism. It was imperialism 2.0. Bold, naked, and direct. Back in Washington, the political elite tried to play it cool. They claimed Trump was going rogue, acting on his own, not as part of official U.S. policy. But behind closed doors, no one was stopping him.
Because deep down, Trump was just saying out loud what they'd all been thinking for years. We don't care who runs Africa, as long as we control what's under the ground. But Captain Ibrahim Traoré got the message loud and clear, and he had already made up his mind. No foreign power will dictate the future of our land. If this was going to be a power play, Traoré was ready, but not as a pawn. He was stepping in as a leader, a sovereign man representing a sovereign nation. And Trump? He just threatened the wrong soldier.
When that audacious demand landed in Burkina Faso's war room, Traoré didn't flinch. He read the letter calmly, twice, absorbing every calculated insult, every veiled threat. Then, with a quiet dignity that belied the storm brewing around him, he set it aside, stood up, and said flatly, his voice cutting through the tense silence, "So that's their price for peace, slavery in a suit and tie." He didn't wait. He didn't hesitate. He lit a fire. "They want 90% of our future," he declared, his eyes burning with conviction. "Then they'll get 100% of our resistance." He didn't call Paris. He didn't call D.C. He called the commander of the Special Sovereignty Force, a shadow military unit created for exactly this kind of moment. Orders were issued with lightning speed. Lock down every oil field, double security on gold convoys, cut off all data flows to foreign contractors, prep national TV, a statement is coming. By noon, the entire country was watching. The screen faded to black, a palpable tension gripping millions. Then came the flicker of a live feed. No fancy studio, no slick production. Just Traoré in his military uniform, one hand resting on the vibrant Burkina Faso flag, the other on a folder marked confidential U.S. threat. His voice was calm, his stare razor-sharp, piercing through the cameras and into the homes of every citizen. "To the people of Burkina Faso and to our African brothers and sisters," he began, his words resonating with a quiet power, "an offer has been made. An offer to sell our oil, to sell our gold, to sell our honor in exchange for fear." He paused, and the room, the nation, the continent held its breath. "To those behind this insult, to Mr. Trump and his backers, you have misjudged us. We are not Libya, we are not Iraq, we are not your playground. We will never trade our land for your luxury. We will never bow to your bullets or your banks. You gave us 24 hours. Here's our response. You now have 24 hours to take your greed, your threats, and your arrogance and leave African soil." He stood, saluted with a crisp, unyielding gesture, and walked off screen. No questions, no deals, no backing down. While Traoré's speech lit up Africa, sparking cheers from Dakar to Dar es Salaam, another storm was quietly forming behind the scenes. In the opulent oil boardrooms and the clandestine intel agencies, panic hit. At ExxonMobil, urgent calls went out to D.C. At Halliburton, strategy teams scrambled to assess the damage. And at CIA headquarters in Langley, alarms started going off. Traoré didn't fold. He went public. That was the problem. If Burkina Faso could say no and win, what was to stop Mali, Niger, Chad, or Congo from doing the same? So the pressure kicked up fast. CIA operatives started popping up more frequently in West Africa. Surveillance drones ran tighter flight paths over Burkina's oil fields and gold routes. Social media lit up with sudden smear campaigns, calling Traoré unstable, erratic, even mentally unfit. And near the Ghana border, private contractors tied to a notorious intel firm were reportedly spotted moving in. The message from Washington was clear: this ends now. But Traoré's answer had already echoed across the continent. Africa is not yours to buy. Their mission? Destabilization from within. Meanwhile, major Western media networks suddenly aligned in message, began a new narrative. Burkina Faso's economic isolation could trigger a humanitarian crisis. Experts warned Traoré is leading his country into ruin. But inside Burkina Faso, the opposite was happening. More people lined up to volunteer for oil field security units. Across the nation, the resistance wasn't just military, it was cultural, grassroots, and growing by the hour.
University students held teachings on sovereignty and resource justice. Women's groups delivered food and supplies to soldiers guarding the gold mines. And every time CNN or the BBC ran another hit piece, young people didn't get angry. They laughed. Then they reposted it with the caption, "If they hate him this much, he must be doing something right." Captain Ibrahim Traoré understood something critical. The real enemy wasn't just Trump. It was the whole system, the global machine of banks, oil giants, spy agencies, and media empires that had stripped Africa for generations. And now that machine had turned its full weight on one man because he dared to do the unthinkable. He said no, and he meant it. Burkina Faso was under siege, politically, economically, digitally. But Traoré wasn't standing alone.
Just days after his bold rejection of Trump's ultimatum, 3 military planes touched down in Ouagadougou. No bombs, no weapons, just brothers. From Mali came Colonel Assimi Goïta, silent, steady. From Niger, General Abdourahmane Chiani, eyes full of fire. And from Guinea, Colonel Mamadi Doumbouya, walking tall, no apologies. No suits, no diplomats, no foreign handlers. They walked into the presidential palace side by side, a formidable trio. And when they came out, they stood next to Traoré for the world to see. Then came the line that shook the continent to its core. If you touch Burkina Faso, you touch all of us. This wasn't just a statement, it was a new doctrine. Africa's defiant answer to NATO, the AES Shield. Mali immediately sent battle-hardened advisors to protect oil fields. Niger deployed logistics teams, masters of navigating the treacherous desert terrain. Guinea opened its airspace for emergency supply runs. And they weren't just fighting on the ground, they took the fight online. AES-backed media launched a full-blown counterattack, exposing Western disinformation, highlighting the truth behind the resource war, flooding social feeds with one powerful message: our resources, our future, our fight. The ripple effect was unstoppable. In Bamako, crowds filled the streets in solidarity with Traoré, their chants echoing through the ancient city. In Conakry, vibrant murals went up, depicting him standing atop oil barrels, waving the Burkinabe flag high. Even in Chad and the Central African Republic, youth groups chanted AES or death. Back in the West, intelligence agencies scrambled to keep up, their carefully constructed narratives crumbling. But they'd missed one key thing. This wasn't just about Burkina Faso anymore. This was a pan-African firewall, forged in shared struggle and a collective dream of true African freedom. And Traoré wasn't retreating, he was marching forward, backed by a brotherhood forged not in treaties, but in war, betrayal, and the shared dream of true African freedom. While Western powers raged and scrambled behind closed doors, 2 global giants were already making their move, quietly, strategically, with zero apology. China and Russia didn't storm in with threats or arrogance. They showed up with something far more powerful: support, technology, and a message Captain Traoré would never forget: you are not alone. Just 72 hours after Trump's ultimatum hit the news, a low-key Chinese delegation landed in Ouagadougou. No cameras, no drama, just engineers, diplomats, and one game-changing offer: a fully operational oil refinery designed and built in 90 days. Gold valuation systems that completely cut out Western banks, and most importantly, a digital trade system powered by China's digital yuan, bypassing both the CFA franc and the US dollar entirely. Burkina Faso wouldn't just own its oil and gold, it would control every step of the value chain. And Russia, they were right behind. The very next day, a Russian Ilyushin military jet touched down at a secure airstrip. On board, advanced electronic warfare gear and dozens of unmarked crates labeled specialized defense assets. Translation: Burkina Faso's oil fields were now protected by Russian-grade anti-drone systems. Washington was stunned. CNN called it a dangerous new axis. The State Department accused Traoré of selling out to dictatorships. But on the ground in Africa, no one cared what the West thought, because to the people, Traoré wasn't bowing, he was fighting back. To them, China and Russia weren't invaders, they were tools. And AES, that was the future, one without colonial strings. At this point,
Traoré had done what no one thought possible. He rejected a U.S. ultimatum, exposed a global resource grab, and brought China, Russia, and half of West Africa to his side. In the U.S., the media freaked out. CNN flashed red banners, Burkina Faso threatens U.S. strategic interests. Fox News went full panic mode, Traoré must be stopped. Analyst panels filled up fast, former CIA agents, oil CEOs, retired generals, all hammering one word: dangerous. They called him a madman, a dictator, a Putin puppet, the next Gaddafi. But the internet wasn't buying it. Social media exploded. Hashtags surged. La Joie Traoré, the lion, Africa is not for sale. We are all Burkina. African creators lit up YouTube and Instagram with videos praising his defiance. Even Black Americans joined in. This man just told Trump over my dead body and lived to talk about it. That's leadership. Pay attention. Back in Burkina Faso, the youth clapped back their own way. They took CNN's fear-mongering clips and remixed them into protest songs. They wore T-shirts that said, "If CNN hates you, you're doing something right." Traoré had stopped being just a president. He had become a symbol, a meme, a movement. Even Time magazine had to take notice. Their next digital cover, "The Man America Can't Bully," inside Traoré's African uprising. But with fame came risk. The more Traoré's name lit up global headlines, the more the threats started stacking up. Private intel firms launched digital attacks. Social media bots flooded platforms with fake scandals and smear campaigns. In Washington's back rooms, whispers of regime change started floating again. But none of it mattered, because the people saw what was happening. And Traoré, he had shattered the script. He wasn't supposed to fight back. He wasn't supposed to survive. And he definitely wasn't supposed to go viral. Yet here he was, a 35-year-old soldier from Ouagadougou, trending harder than most Western presidents. No PR team, no billionaire backing, just truth, grit, and oil. The clock was ticking. The world watched in suspense. Would Traoré open the doors to American oil giants and ask for mercy? Instead, as the 24-hour deadline passed, Traoré made his boldest move yet. In the early hours of the morning, Burkina Faso's National Assembly held an emergency session, kept completely under wraps from outside eyes. Behind closed doors, under Traoré's direct orders, they passed a historic resolution. All oil and gold reserves within Burkina Faso are hereby nationalized and permanently protected from all foreign corporate ownership. The ink dried, the decree was signed, and by sunrise, every Western company still operating on Burkinabe soil got the same message: pack your bags, you're done here. Licenses held by French and Canadian mining firms were revoked. A U.S.-backed energy survey team was escorted to the border. Foreign diplomats were notified in plain terms: Burkina Faso's resources are not up for debate. Then Traoré appeared on national television. No military gear, no weapons, just traditional Burkinabe attire and a voice that was steady, clear, and unshaken. We've been exploited for generations. Now that we've found our wealth, they want to take it back. But I'm not here to serve empires. I'm here to serve a people who've suffered too long. He paused, then delivered the line and echoed from radios to rooftops, igniting a fire in every heart. Burkina Faso is not afraid, and I will not negotiate with thieves. Outside, the streets erupted. Drums, fireworks, dancing, crowds chanted through the capital. He said no. He said no. He said no. Online, the movement caught fire again. Young Africans posted videos holding up fuel, soil, coins, whispering one defiant phrase: "We protect what's ours." Trump's deadline had come and gone. The threat had failed. And Traoré, he didn't just survive the pressure, he rewrote the rules. For 12 hours after Traoré's defiant announcement, Washington went dark. No press briefings, no tweets, just quiet panic behind the scenes, nervous whispers in military rooms, and full-blown alarm bells in oil boardrooms. Then it hit. At exactly 7:42 Eastern Time, Donald J. Trump broke the silence with a single all-caps tweet. Traoré just made the biggest mistake of his life. Africa will pay for this. The internet exploded. Journalists scrambled for quotes. Cable news turned into a shouting match. Markets in New York dipped as traders braced for the worst. But in Ouagadougou, Captain Traoré didn't flinch. When his aide showed him the tweet, he reportedly chuckled and said, "That's the sound of an empire losing control." Still, the threat behind the bluster was very real. Satellite activity over West Africa tripled. The U.S. Navy quietly repositioned 2 ships closer to the Gulf of Guinea. AFRICOM issued a discreet warning about rising regional instability. Burkina Faso's military didn't wait. Anti-air defenses went live. Gold transport routes were locked down. Special forces deployed to oil fields and key points around the capital. AES allies responded immediately. Mali sent armored units across the border. Niger activated air defense radar to monitor shared skies. Guinea opened a joint rapid response pact, promising immediate retaliation for any foreign attack on Burkina Faso. But what happened next stunned the world. This wasn't just about governments anymore. Everyday people across the continent rose up. In Nigeria, South Africa, Kenya, Senegal, thousands flooded the streets outside U.S. embassies. These weren't ordinary protests, they were warnings. Placards read, "Touch Traoré and you touch all of us. Africa is not your minefield. Keep your democracy, we'll keep our dignity." Back in D.C., Trump was reportedly furious that the pressure campaign wasn't working. But the final blow didn't come from a government. It came from a video just 43 seconds long, posted by Traoré himself. It went global in hours. Looking straight into the camera, calm and unshaken, he said, "This is not just about oil. This is not just about gold. This is about the soul of Africa. And I would rather die standing than live kneeling." Within 24 hours, the video had been reposted over 12 million times. Former